To meet all of you. I come from quite a varied background, so I haven't just gone and done a fine art course straight off. I've done quite a few different things, and in a different presentation that I give, sometimes I actually put up a slide that shows this starting point and this ending point. And often when we look at people like Damien Hirst and Tracy Emin and Rachel White-Reed, it appears that they possibly went to university, studied, and it's just been this meteoric leap and now they're multimillionaires. In reality, it's more complex, it's denser than that. If you can imagine a starting point and then a quite complex scribble in the middle, and then maybe you're up and you're down and you're further along. It's a really mixed bag. And that's one of the reasons why I've got this, as curious as it might seem, a little Instagram to start with. I'm going to ask you throughout all of what I'm talking about to think about what you're looking at, okay, but also think about the construct, think about what it's provoking. Think about the framing mechanism. So, we walk towards a gallery and we see that sign, and we walk in and we understand a certain level of artifice or tradition. Just think about what occurs behind it. So, I like that moment where you press click and it doesn't move. Okay, now, on the bottom right-hand corner here, it's quite small, but there is a website called academia.edu. Going to partly throw you in at the deep end, but you can always catch up a little bit later, or if you know what I'm saying, that's all cool as well. But I think it's good to sort of know some of these platforms are out there. Now, academia.edu is an academic version of Facebook. So lots and lots and lots and lots of the professors, lots and lots of the postgraduate researchers, they're putting all of their research out there, they're initiating conversations on it. And if you were to log on today with it, you'll often find a lot of the institutions have their own website pages on it, and you connect with the lectures on it. I don't know, are you on it, my love?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so you can find hard on it. It's particularly useful when you're starting to understand what language you might use to describe what it is you do and where you place yourself in the world. Now, I've put a taxonomic nail in the wall. For me, this looks like a really wide area that I look at. But the more you do what you do and the longer you do what you do and the deeper you begin to look at where you place yourself, the more you may realise that actually what you're fascinated in is paint, and that's what you're going to look at for the next 50, 60 years. I look back now at some of my foundation artwork and I'm quite astonished that even though I did my foundation art course, went and did a media production course and went to work in television and didn't even know the word installation when I did my foundation art course. I look at the work now, happened upon some pictures the other day, and I realised 7 years of postgraduate education later, including an MA by research, and some of that work then is telling me a lot about what I do now. You can't know that yet. So this looks a really wide set of issues, areas, but these are all of the places that I like to look at. Some of the things that people shy away from, that are difficult to look at. By all means, have a look through. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different genres, themes, approaches, mediums, ways in which people use their language. So just begin to get familiar with it. And even if you just choose one term a month, just live it. Really begin that, write it in the middle of that really massive piece of paper in your mind and connect up all the things that link to it. Okay, now I'm going to show you about 3 different things to start with that I find incredibly inspiring, evocative, and important to the work that I do. They are just indicators, but again I want you to think about the framing mechanisms, and I want you to think about what you're seeing and what you're not seeing. So it won't all be me talking today.
Hey, he wants us to go over the snow bum rush. There's fucking dudes right there. If we do that, we're gonna have to fucking lay down. We're gonna have to lay down fire first. Yeah, but we don't know where they're at. That's why we can't. Here we go. We got started roofing them up.
Okay, so Tim Hetherington is the both the cameraman and the director of that work, and Tim died in action in 2011, and his work has gained an incredible level of prominence, even though, I mean, he was a really well-respected journalist beforehand. He was born in Liverpool, and he had a retrospective at a gallery called the Open Eye Gallery. So if you want to see more of his work, there's still a listing on their website. The reason I showed it to you, and the reason I started with this, is that I often look at the areas of life that others quite often shy away from, especially when we're considering an aesthetic beauty. And people sometimes say to me, you know, is it nice to look at things that are beautiful or relaxing and that are really, that make us feel better? And I think one of our responsibilities as practitioners and artists are to actually look at the whole story of life and to deconstruct how it is that's being both delivered, how you're a part of that meaning, and how you can frame that meaning, how you as authors can instigate conversations around what it is you put in a place physically, how you lay something up in actually a really deceptively simple way. You have a man there who is, yes, on the one hand an award-winning photographer, but started with the premise of sleeping soldiers. I mean, it's such an evocative title for this work, because obviously it's something we all do. It's like eating, isn't it? It's like breathing. We all sleep and we all stop. And yet by placing this parallel for us of something we all do collectively, both in its title and physically by showing us those sleeping soldiers, right against some documentary within the action embedded footage, it's an incredibly powerful form in it. The hairs on the back of my neck are still raised up about it, and some of you will have really responded to that film just then, and some people might just think, oh yeah, okay, I get it, but I'm not sure, it's not my thing, and that is absolutely fine. I'm going to show you a real diverse mix of practices and ways in which to look at the world. But I can assure you the reason that you're on the courses that you are on is because there is something in your life that has exactly that reaction for you. And although you may, and it's always a fantastic education when if you are always working in photography and then say Heidi or somebody else, oh, I'm clicking it on, Heidi or somebody else says to you, actually, because you always work in photography, now what I need you to do for this next project is make a sculptural intervention, and that is what you're doing. And you may listen to it and think, okay, I'll give it a go, and then a few days later you may be really reactionary about it and think, I really don't want to do it, but do it every time. Keep trying to express what it is you do through as many different mediums as you can, so you can begin to focus in on the things that you know are the way in which you want to look at the world. So I'm going to read you a little bit here because I've got quite a few bits that I want to make sure I actually get across to you specifically. So I work with the environment, but I don't work just with the environment because I work in terms of a closed loop process. So whether that is our emotions and difficult emotions or whether that's physical waste. And part of the canon of that story, part of the history of that story, when it comes to the earth and our use of the earth and its resources, involves a woman called Merle Laderman Euclades. I'm going to read something specifically about her. The art of Merle Laderman Euclades is about the everyday routines of life. In 1969, after the birth of her first child, Euclades wrote a manifesto for maintenance art. I'm going to repeat that title because it's her most important piece of work. A manifesto for maintenance art that questioned binary systems of opposition that articulate differences between art and life, nature and culture, public and private. The manifesto proposed undoing boundaries that separate the maintenance of everyday life and the role of an artist in society. Euclades was interested in how the concept of transference could be used by artists to empower people to act as agents of change, and that's what every single one of you in this room is. That's why you're partly doing what it is you do, because you are agents of change. To stimulate positive community involvement towards ecological sustainability. Now at the end of this talk I'm going to make sure today that I've given Heidi a copy of this, so if you want that specific quote you'll be able to get that, and I will make sure that you've got a copy of this PowerPoint as well. So I'm going to go on to my next clip.
Here is my manifesto, written as a young artist, age 30, who decided to survive even though she became a mother maintenance worker and fell out of the picture of her autonomous Western avant-garde heroes. I had an epiphany. If I am the boss of my freedom, then I name maintenance art. It is art and art history that must change. I wrote this in one sitting in a cold fury. Manifesto for Maintenance Art, 1969. Proposal for an exhibition, Care. Here are some excerpts. Roman numeral 1, ideas. A, the death instinct and the life instinct. The death instinct, separation, individuality, avant-garde par excellence, to follow one's own path to death, do your own thing, dynamic change. The life instinct, unification, the eternal return, the perpetuation and maintenance of the species, survival systems and operations, equilibrium. B, two basic systems, development and maintenance. The sour ball of every revolution. After the revolution, who's going to pick up the garbage on Monday morning? Development, pure individual creation. The new, change, progress, advance, excitement. Maintenance, keep the dust off the pure individual creation. Preserve the new, sustain the change, protect progress, defend and prolong the advance, renew the excitement. C, maintenance is a drag. It takes all the fucking time, literally. The mind boggles and chafes at the boredom. The culture confers lousy status on maintenance jobs equals low pay. Housewives equals no pay. Clean your desk, wash the dishes, clean the floor, wash your clothes, wash your toes, change the baby's diaper, finish the report, correct the typos, mend the fence, keep the customer happy, throw out the stinking garbage. Watch out! Don't put things in your nose. What shall I wear? I have no socks. Pay your bills. Don't litter. Save string. Wash your hair. Change the sheets. Go to the store. I'm out of perfume. Say it again. He doesn't understand. Seal it again. It leaks. Go to work. This art is dusty. Clear the table. Call him again. Flush the toilet. Stay young. D, art. Everything I say is art is art. Everything I do is art is art. Quote, we have no art. We try to do everything well. Balinese saying. E, the exhibition of maintenance art care would zero in on pure maintenance exhibited as contemporary art and yield by utter opposition clarity of issues. Roman numeral 2, the maintenance art exhibition care. 3 parts, personal maintenance, general societal maintenance, and earth maintenance. A, part 1, personal maintenance. I am an artist. I am a woman. I am a wife. I am a mother. Random order. I do a hell of a lot of washing, cleaning, cooking, renewing, supporting, preserving, etc. Also, up to now separately, I do art. Now, I will simply do these maintenance, everyday things and flush them up to consciousness, exhibit them as art. I will live in the museum as I customarily do at home with my husband and my baby for the duration of the exhibition, and do all these things as public art activities. I will sweep and wax the floors, dust everything, wash the walls, i.e. floor paintings, dustwork, soap sculpture, wall paintings. I will cook and invite people to eat, make agglomerations and dispositions of all functional refuse. The exhibition area might look empty of art, but it will be maintained in full public view. My working will be the work. B, part 2, general societal maintenance. Everyone does a hell of a lot of noodling maintenance work. The general societal part of the exhibition consists of interviews, a room of desks and chairs where professional interviewers will interview the spectators at the exhibition along these questions. What do you think maintenance is? How do you feel about spending whatever parts of your life you spend on maintenance activities? What is the relationship between maintenance and freedom? What is the relationship between maintenance and life's dreams? The responses should be personal. These interviews are taped and replayed throughout the exhibition area. C, part 3, earth maintenance. Every day, containers of the following kinds of refuse will be delivered to the museum. The contents of one sanitation truck, a container of polluted air, a container of polluted Hudson River, a container of ravaged land. Once at the exhibition, each container will be serviced, purified, depolluted, rehabilitated, recycled, and conserved by various technical and or pseudo-technical procedures, either by myself or scientists. These servicing procedures are repeated throughout the duration of the exhibition. So, 42 years later, this manifesto is a world vision and a call for revolution for the workers of maintenance, for these are the workers of survival and sustainability. Look around. That's most of the people in the whole world. Together, if organized and in coalition, we could reshape the world.
Now, oh, ooh. Oh, I want my PowerPoint back. No, if I press escape, I'll lose all my windows that have opened.
No, it'll just take you off full screen.
Well, that's what I said a moment ago to the technician that came in and helped us. Yeah, look. No. Let me get back to my window, and then that's what we need. Now, I show you Merle, Lader and Ukuleles, and I show you Hetherington, because I can get that's better. Right, I can guarantee you, anyone that comes to mind immediately to you that inspires you now has been influenced by somebody else, who has been influenced by somebody else, who has been influenced by somebody else. This is how we understand how we map the world. And when you leave here and you begin your life as emerging artists, because I would say that you're emerging artists already, although that can be a political comment to make. But when you leave here, you're going to meet lots and lots of other people who are players in your success, who will help you, some who will want to know a lot more about you very specifically, about where you're located. And sometimes I feel there's a division, and I know it occurred to me on my way here that when I was studying, and it's no different now, sometimes I'm making, and this is so far in the back of my mind I'm not thinking about it. And other times I'm very rooted in the people that have gone before me. Because if I think that what I do with rubbish is new, when Merle, Lader and Ukuleles has been doing it since 1969, I look a fool, and I'm not rooted in my practice. And whilst it's a new experiential thing for me to do to work with that waste, I owe it to myself and my practice to understand where that experience is situated in that historical canon. And sometimes when we're studying, it feels difficult to marry those two and to understand that everything we do as an action has probably gone before. So if you're working out where it's situated now, why are you making it in the way in which you're making it today? Who are you showing it to? Where are you placing it? And what conversations are you initiating around it? Because I can assure you there's a wealth, there's a stream, there are rivers coming from each of those particular sources, those ideas, whether it's fabric, whether it's textiles, whether it's environment, whether it's glass, whether it's waste, that are really valuable streams of knowledge. I'm not going to actually show you this clip here, but as I say, I'm going to give you this PowerPoint presentation because I don't want to overrun, and I could easily talk to you for hours on them, and I want to keep to it. But what I'm going to tell you about Agnes Danes is, and it's what these images here show you, are an intervention. Now, I almost always work in a site-responsive and site-specific way. So I respond to the environment that I find myself in, which sometimes comes from a commission, sometimes it comes from where I'm living, sometimes it comes from the domesticity of the house that I'm represented by and I'm living within. And that's what we just saw from the practitioner before. I'll tell you very quickly that what happened with Merle, Lader and Ukuleles, the lady before, is that she was really successful. She was under 30 and she had no children. What she found was, in America at the time, that when she actually had a child, people stopped talking to her and she didn't show much anymore. And it became so difficult because she was at this emerging point in her career where she'd had lots and lots of success and fame. And she really, if you like, dug down into the detail of saying, wait a minute, I'm still exactly the same person. But in terms of how I am packaged in the product that I represent in terms of who I am, she became her working. And she said to herself, this is ridiculous. My work is the living with this child. My work is the maintenance manifesto of what it is that I'm doing each day. And she's become the one and only artist in residence with the New York Sanitation Department, and the longest running artist in residence with the New York Sanitation Department, because she's been working with them ever since she was that 30-year-old woman. She knew in that very moment of childbirth and her political movement, her change from someone who is visible, and we can sell this work, to someone who literally half of her day, 3/4 of her day, so much of her day was taken up with maintenance art. Back into Agnes Danes for a moment. Agnes Danes took, and I want to get this right, it was 3/4 of an acre, I think, specifically, but please have a double check on her name when you look. 3.8. Have a double check on the actual size of the land. She basically took what is the most expensive real estate, so the most expensive commercial land in the world in Manhattan, and she planted a wheat field onto it. And her gallery became the work with that wheat field and that space. And that was her working. And these are all clips. You can see from the left-hand side with all the rubble, and you can see the Statue of Liberty in the background on the top left on one. You can see the Twin Towers. You can see the growing of this wheat field. I'm going to read you a little bit about it, actually. One of the early pioneers of both the environmental art movement and the conceptual art movement is Agnes Danes. She brings her wide-ranging interests in the physical and social sciences, mathematics, philosophy, linguistics, poetry and music to her delicate drawings, books and monuments and artworks around the globe. In 1982, she carried out what has become known one of the best-known environmental art projects, where she planted a 2-acre field of wheat on a vacant lot in downtown Manhattan. Titled Wheatfield, A Confrontation, the artwork yielded £1,000 in weight, 1,000 pounds of wheat in the middle of New York City to comment on human values and misplaced priorities. The harvested grain then travelled to 28 cities worldwide in the International Art Show for the End of World Hunger and was symbolically planted around the globe. Okay, I'm going to get on to what it is I do and how it is I work in the world. So really simply, this is just something that has come up for me in a recurrent fashion, and it tends to always work. I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, you sing a lot on my back there, aren't you? Because I work with waste, I've got to the point now where often I receive phone calls. A couple of times in a year I'll probably receive a phone call from someone quite obscure who I maybe don't even know. So 6 months ago I had a phone call from Wirral County Council saying to me, did I want to make use of their waste musical instruments? You know, now when people come towards you with materials, it's interesting how you will begin to change what it is you do. Now for myself, I now understand I will probably work with anything, because it means I have to work really hard if I'm offered something and I think to myself, well, what does that mean? What is that showing? For me, my waste materials are no different to paints or plaster, or there has been a conceptual shift in my practice, I suppose, on my foundation course, where I understood that this coffee cup is politically layered now as a piece of waste. I've purchased it, I've taken what I need from it, and when I throw that away, I'm essentially forgetting where it even goes and throwing away all my responsibility to it. So that is as poignant for me to work with as any pencil or any paint or any maquette for a sculpture. That in its own right, actually explodes an entire supply chain in terms of the coffee that's got here. The printers of the cups are often a company called Huhtamaki, that I think come from Istanbul. That plastic may well last, and I work a lot with plastic, that plastic may well last longer than, I have no children yet, but when I have children, my children's children's children, that plastic may last 400 or 500 years. And I've just gone downstairs and paid less than £2 for it. Right. So, material. One of my bases is material. So, Wirral County Council rings me up. They say they said they've got a gym full of some instruments. I go to this rotting, very damp gym, and there are what must have been 250 cellos, double basses, violins, all broken, quite sad in the way in which they look. And I said, yes, I don't know right now what I'm going to do with that, but yes, right, material. Location. I'll show you a film in a moment that I shot in a concentration camp. I didn't know before I went to the concentration camp that I was going to make a film. I didn't make a film while I was in the concentration camp, but I did take a series of photographs as documentation. That is my action research. That is your action research. Although sometimes you'll be instigated by your project or your brief, oh, I've got this brief to do, we've got to give it in 6 weeks, what shall I make it about? At other times, you'll be constantly fascinated by the way the rainwater looks on the floor near traffic lights, seriously, there'll be those things that you come back to with your pattern, what it is you do. It may be a particular place where something's occurred to you that was really influential in your life. It could be where somebody else was murdered 4 streets away from you. So material, location. Commissions and relationships. I would say 50% of my work comes from people that I know already, that I've been working with already, that think, oh, I think Robyn may be interested in that. 50% of the things occur in exactly the same way as this conversation is happening here now. Heidi basically put a call out onto one of the platforms, which I'll list in a moment, that you should all become members of, really, or we should definitely be looking at. She said, we would like some people to give artist talks, and we'd like them to be this and this, and it'll be at that time, and it'll be in this place. And, you know, day in, day out, probably a good, at least once a week, look at these forums and these posts, and I go, great, well, what's going to work? What's going to be right? What do I think is going to be a good fit? You know, Google College, I'm like, yeah, great, I'd love to come and talk to you about it. If I'm hitting, right, at any one time, one of these, that's great. If I'm hitting 2 of these things, that's great. If I'm hitting 3 of these things, then things are really working. And the more you do what you do, the more you'll realise you may gain the material, and 6 months later the location comes into view, and then you actually realise, oh, if I go for that commissioning strand, or I go for that funding structure, or I go to the British Council and say, look, I've got this material and I've got this location, then you know you're really onto something in terms of your practice and how you're going to actually, sustain yourself long term. Now, you'll have your own different things. That's literally just my experiential version of it. Commission. Okay, so here are some examples of my work. During 2012, I won the Liverpool Art Prize. There are a few regional art prizes in the country, but not many. The artwork in the art prize involved a 12-metre tower, a 10-metre silver birch waste tree, I think I've got a photo in a bit, and 132,000 plastic knives and forks. Okay, so I've dealt with trees quite a few times over as waste. Oh, got my auto click on. From that, I received a telephone call from somebody I'd met on a train once, who was the commissioning editor the commissioner for Eden Arts, which is the UK's largest rural development agency. And it's really curious how you sustain your practice long term, because he said to me, oh, hi, it's Adrian, I met you, 6 months ago or something. And he joked and he said, I don't think we can afford you now because you've won the art prize. Must have thought I was staying in Hurst or something. And I went, no, go on, talk to me, let's see what we can do here. He said, well, I'm going to run this past you. I've got a commission and it's to do with artwork in trees. And it's really rare that work occurs in this fashion. But he said, it's to do with artwork in trees, and I've seen what you did with the art prize. And do you think you want to come up to Cumbria and work with me? Now, what unfolded from a conversation on a train, where I talked about where it is I'm coming from, what I do. I've got business cards and postcards. I really recommend to you, this is why I was talking about Twitter as well, talk about what you do with people. If you're passionate about what you do, then share it with the world. As soon as he said artwork in trees in Cumbria, I was like, great, well, what's our timescale? Now, what ensued is over a year's worth of residency in Cumbria over the last year. Quite a lot of blog posts. That was my best way to actually have some more integrity with the project, really, because I'm not based in Cumbria, and they easily could have given that job to somebody who lives in Cumbria. So the really best way for me to have an open, transparent studio space was my Tumblr. So I set up a specific Tumblr blog for them. It gave them content for their Twitter feed, it gave them content for their website, and it also meant they weren't doing loads of studio visits, and I wasn't getting on a train lots of times. They said, we like your art prize work, we'd really like that in Cumbria. And I said, well, it's not very ethical for me to put my art prize tree on a low loader and drive it all the way up to Cumbria just so that we can then put it in your environment. So can I work with your environment to see what it is we can find there and grow from the art prize work? These are just 2 of the reportage images from the blog, as are these. That's the Tumblr at the bottom there, which again I'm not going to go to now, but if you want to take a note of it. I think I gave them roughly 156, 160 posts, so sort of, 1 every 3 days, something like that. It doesn't have to become a really onerous task. It's also about tuning into what you do right now. If it's drawing, imagine at the end of that project, not only do they have a couple of installations, but they've actually got 156 of your drawings that they can say, this is a relationship someone's had with the space of Cumbria, the landscape of Cumbria. This is one image of the work that I ended up giving to them. If you look at my website, you'll you'll be able to see a lot more images of it. This is a tree that was sourced from the landscape of Acorn Bank, which is National Trust property. So through the relationship with them, we broke up the relationship with the National Trust property, which meant this work could be in place over their entire summer season. So start to think of different project partners for you. The National Trust are really keen to work with different artists. This is the particular space that tree was in. Now, my original art prize winning tree, the floor was surrounded by lots of waste plastic. There's no way in terms of health and safety that would have been the right answer for them in this space. That's an unmanned tower. There's nobody invigilating this space on their site, but the opportunity was a good 6-8 month opportunity. Their tower, just so I can give you some of the details about it, as I said, it's more on my website. The balustrades you can see here were harvested Dutch elm wood. So during the Dutch elm crisis, they harvested the wood from their estate, their whole estate, and they built the stairwell inside this tower. At the same time, they were told that they shouldn't use this type of wood because it would warp and it wouldn't make a sustainable stairwell or set of balustrades. But they wanted to harvest the materials that surrounded them, that supported them. Now, because I deal with large-scale supply chains often as well, that's coming back into our coffee cup, where the coffee is harvested from, where the plastic comes from, where that paper's come from for £1.86 worth of coffee. I was also looking at Clara Fraxinea and ash dieback. Now, Dutch elm arrived in the country because of the import and the large-scale export and import. Clara Fraxinea, or ash dieback, arrived in this country because of an infected batch of seedlings. So it was a tree that was bought on either a massive shipping container, I would have thought. And it's currently wreaking havoc with our supply chain. With our ecosystem. 1 in 3 trees in our forests are ash. Okay, 1 in 3 trees in a forest. Imagine 1 in 3 trees gone. Now, I said to them at the National Trust, do you think you've got an ash tree? I understand it's a political, this is the other thing, when we work in these exterior settings and you work with bodies that have reputation to maintain, you've got to be really sensitive to what it is you're doing. Doesn't mean they're not going to say, yeah, great, let's do it, but be honest with them, be open with them, and act with sensitivity with them, and you'll probably find if they believe in what you're doing, they'll go with you. So I really wanted to work with an ash tree within balustrades made from Dutch elm. I mean, I can't imagine a more powerful synergy than those two woods in a small tower that people experience, often just 1 or 2 people at a time. I asked them if they had any woods that they thought could be taken down or removed for health and safety reasons, or if they thought they had any infected trees. And we went on a site visit. They could easily have said no. Remember, I didn't want to bring my tree up. They could easily have said no. We sourced this ash tree because it was growing out of a dry stone wall and it was growing over a pigsty, so it had to come down. I'm very rarely, probably 20% of the time, I'll make things from scratch that are new things, but most of the time I like to deal with this. I like to get into the mess of what it is we leave behind. And that's exactly what this tree is. So, right. Material. I used to work in a bookshop when I was studying. It's a book chain that has now gone bust. Now, because I knew, although I did start with all of those things as you do on foundation, where you go through all the different areas and you learn all the different tools and the processes, the book chain that I worked in created a phenomenal amount of rubbish and waste. They were called borders. At the time, like any student, you know, I didn't have loads of money to spend on expensive this, that or the other. But what I did have was a vast quantity of rubbish that I could access for absolutely nothing that was given to me. And let's come back in, I'm going to keep coming back into this Costa Cup. An American booksellers having bookshops that are like supermarkets, vast footprints, right? Waste that is waste that's generated from a process that is based on consumption. Now, especially plastic gift cards on the left-hand side. When we come into the politics of waste, plastic gift cards are one of the most difficult things we're currently creating to recycle. They're densely layered with a magnetic strip that can't be taken out of them, and they're replacing paper gift cards. So we used to put £5 or £10 on a book token or a paper gift token. It would mean to the bearer of this token, it's the same as this £5 note. We go and spend it in the shop. I'm not saying for one moment they then recycled it, because they didn't, but it was paper, so eventually it would break down. We are, if you look at the statistics of the number of gift cards that are being distributed just in America alone, you're talking billions. Billions of gift cards that we're actually saying are worth, say, $5. That's all that's worth. It's just $5 off a $5 gift card. We've all done it. We've all bought iTunes cards. I'm not the only one. I'm implicit in it, in this waste creation. But it's virtually impossible to recycle them. That plastic is going to last between 400 and 500 years. And the value that we're placing on it within our structure and within our gifting mechanism, there's an amazing book called The Gift, which you should all read. It's by Lewis Hyde, Hyde. But the value we're putting on that gifting mechanism is that so that we can have something immediately that's about twice the value of this coffee cup, we're spending £5 on it. And it'll still be here when our children's children are alive. Let me share this film, which I'm going to have to cut and paste until window. Oh no, it's done it. It's done what it did a moment ago. Let me open this up for you. Has anyone got any questions while I'm bringing this up for a moment? Because we're about, let's have a look at the time.
Do statements when you're making works like that, do they deal with the sort of big oil companies who were pushing plastics?
In terms of the way in which I statement my work, or the way in which I describe it and I talk about it, I'm aware, I'll come on to this point a little bit later, I'm going to use the term rhizomatic. Don't worry, it's one of my slides in a bit. But there are two theorists, again, these names will come up in a minute, so don't worry, called Deleuze and Guattari, right? And they talk about all systems having multiple entry and exit points. Right, you've got a front door here, and you've all got your own name tags, haven't you? And we've got passes to come in and everything. But there are multiple entry and exit points, not just physically in terms of doorways, but how it is you engage with the supervisors here, how it is you engage with your staff here, how it is you engage with the principal. The art world is absolutely no different, and my conversation with waste and policy and politics is no different. So I place those statements so that they aren't just, it would be really easy for me to be environmentally screeching or preaching about it, really easy, because that's what I feel, if you like, my emotions about it. But that's not going to help anybody necessarily, because they'll feel like they're being lectured to. So when it comes to statements, actually, sometimes all people need to understand is that plastic cup's going to outlive you. So, or in the case of the film, I'm going to show you this film now, and you'll understand why I'm saying it. Maybe part of the answer's in the title. It's completely, I tread a really thin line when it comes to copyright, and I put my hands up with that. I openly haven't yet been approached, should we say. But the big supermarkets, to me, a lot of their labelling, a lot of the ways in which they are convincing us to do things, it's fair game. And I'm more than happy, because of my public profile, should any of them say you can't call that work that, you can't use that material, to contest them with that. I've got no worries around it. So, plastic, the film I'm going to show you called Smart Price, the artwork called Smart Price, came from those 132 plastic knives and forks. World's largest supermarket chain, the cheapest plastic. I still now have, 4 years on, 78 rubble sacks of plastic that I'm trying to find a single recycler for in the UK. Picnic plastic that we all use and throw away. I'll show you this film and then
Are you actually going to use that coffee cup then?
Yeah, probably. I'll tell you something really sad, right? I went to, I've just come back from this research trip in France, and I had a chocolate mousse, and you know chocolate mousse sometimes come in glass ramekins, don't they? And I actually bought it back in my luggage. So that's the other problem. If you're going to start talking about it, then you need to walk the talk, and so yeah.
is called Smart Price, and it contains 132,000 plastic knives and forks, 5,280 pieces of plastic packaging that we use to house the knives and forks, and 330 cardboard boxes. I often work with large-scale waste, and the reason that I do this is because I feel waste is part of our connection to the earth that we have become disconnected from. I work with items that you'll recognise, because if you recognise them, you're more likely to feel connected to how you are implicated in a wider system. With Smart Price, I've worked with knives and forks, and they are a value brand of knives and forks that come from a supermarket, which is a global supermarket. So those knives and forks represent part of a global supply chain. So the work is about the gyres, and gyre is the name given to any large system of rotating ocean currents. So where the large swells of water meet around the Earth's surface. And the largest of the 5 main gyres is found in the North Pacific Ocean, and that's most specifically what the work is about. So the area of the North Pacific Gyre covers approximately 20 square kilometres. It's basically the largest ecosystem on the planet. So to reach the centre of that gyre, it takes days. So you literally get into a boat and travel for days, and you can't perceive its enormity, and most people will never ever touch the scale or impact of their use of plastic in terms of where that resides within the world. So it's the largest dump, it's the largest trash vortex of plastic in the world. It's the size of Texas, and basically that gyre, in its pristine state, was the most beautiful, largest ecosystem on the planet that we have now filled with rubbish. When a piece of plastic serves our needs because we use it to eat with, or it's the bottle that contains our water, or it's the lid on the jar of food that we've eaten, it's in a relatively stable and safe state. But as that plastic circulates through the ocean, it acts like a sponge, and it begins to act like a sponge as it's breaking down, and that's to do with the movement and the sunlight. So it becomes a sponge for waterborne contaminants. And these are persistent organic pollutants, and they absorb onto that plastic pollution in high concentrations. So it's not benign. It isn't just the fact that fish and the birds and that whole ecosystem are becoming choked by the quantity of plastic. The plastic itself is also becoming choked. It's becoming saturated with chemicals. It's a double effect of pollution in terms of what was once a pristine area of ocean. The appalling thing about it is that a lot of the plastic is below the surface level of the water. And you're talking about astounding quantities, estimated at 6 kilos of plastic for every kilo of naturally occurring plankton. We are literally swamping the sea and the ocean with waste. That whilst it's breaking down, the smaller molecules are actually entering our food chain because they're entering through the gills of the fish that are literally breathing that plastic in. When we buy that plastic that we use once and it goes to landfill or it ends up in the sea, we are the ones that have chosen to say that that's where that should go. We're the ones that have elected to pay a small price or a value range of plastic knives and forks or a product we've only used once, and then essentially disregard our connection to that waste. We have a choice about our relationship with the earth, and we have a choice about our relationship with the products that we both bring to the earth and that we source from the earth. And within that context, we are part of a vast supply chain that places financial profit for the shareholders of a corporation above the societal value to the world. So profit is placed above the planet.
I'm gonna
Profit comes before.
pause
the
that
planet's
because you can
well-being.
always pick more of that up later. And I want to keep going with what we're...
I got a question. What happens to all the knives and forks when you're done with them?
That's what, I'll tell you what happened next. This was the first incarnation of the work, and because I work with sustainability, then what I like to do is re-show this waste pretty persistently. So that's the first showing of it.
So it's just gonna keep going round in a
The
loop.
second showing of it was the Liverpool Art Prize work. So all you could do with this work was look at it. The second showing of it, you could only be a part of the work if you broke it. So it was the flooring of a tower, and it was a different tower to the other one. To enter the work, to understand the environment, you had to step upon it and you had to break it.
And then what happens to it?
So then now, I've got 78 rubble sacks of plastic, and I'm talking with a company in Leeds called Straight PLC Plastics, Straight Plastics basically. And they're working with me to recycle it.
You can recycle it now?
No, that's the problem.
Yeah.
They say they've got one person that can possibly work with us, but that's like any other business deal. I need to broker that in terms of how it changes into what it's going to change into next and what I do with it. And there's a distinct possibility, because I choose this to be process-led, it's process-driven work, there's a distinct possibility that I could have the plastic for the next 20 years. But that plastic came to me as rubbish. So when you see me opening up all those plastic bags, it looks like I've just gone out and bought some plastic knives and forks, doesn't it? Asda rejected that batch of plastic because it was the wrong colour, and because the knives and forks mismatched each other. So that easily could have ended up in landfill. It's just I happened to be at the right place at the right time with delivery to pay £40 for it.
Are you
So-
always stuck with everything you work with?
No, and I can show you how I'm not always stuck with everything I work with, because this is a good point. Let's move on. I want to make sure that I've got enough time. Heidi, how can we go till 1:45 so I can answer questions?
Yeah,
Is that
normally,
cool?
yeah, 1:45, and I think that's pretty.
Lovely. No, that's perfect. Take a look at my website when you have left here, and you'll see the piece that basically I was awarded a solo show after the Liverpool Art Prize, and that has 3.6 tonnes of plastic waste. So I work with the UK's largest plastics recyclers, and they allowed me to borrow the weight of 4 baby elephants to put in a gallery in one of Europe's primary collections of Victorian paintings, and then they actually took it away afterwards and have recycled it. So that is that's like a perfect solution for me. I can put it in the public realm, they can bring it, because I don't obviously have the flat loading truck to lift that level of plastic waste. I can show it to people, I can raise a question, I can instigate, I can provoke, and then they can actually take it back. What I'm dealing with here, and the reason I make it public and process-led, is that I'm literally harvesting the waste of corporations. So it's like I'm going up against Asda, it's like I'm going up against Borders when they went bust. So this here, this is 45,000 plastic bags, and I hesitate to imagine when they went bust how much went to landfill. That's all I can say. There were multiple stores in the UK, and these were brand new plastic bags that were in a dumper truck. And because I used to work at the store when I was studying, I turned up when I'd finished working there and graduating, and the store manager said, "Oh, Robyn, come and have a look at what we've got here." Rang through to security and said, "Don't worry if we're out the back. It's just Robyn." I opened up a skip with 45,000 plastic bags. Yeah, exactly.
Is that how this started?
Say that
Is
again.
that how it started?
I'll tell you how it started. It started in terms of abundance and where I saw abundance in my life. That's where it started.
To be honest, I kind of see you as a bin. I mean, it's
You
like,
see me as a bin?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if any corporation wants to get rid of some waste, instead of sending it to a landfill, they'll just send it to you.
Should I tell you why they don't?
Right.
Because of the political questions that I raised. So what they'd actually like is for me to be quiet.
They're still
What I'm saying is actually difficult, and the more that I do what I do, the greater the prominence is and the more people I talk to about it. So it actually becomes more political. And I'm going to show you this work, and then there's just 2 more slides. And again, take a look if you can. Take down this website here. This is, bless you, this is one of the rare things that I have fabricated that I've gone to a sign manufacturer to fabricate. We're at a really important time in terms of the way in which we're using our materials, so much so that a group of scientists, geologists, practitioners, postgraduate researchers, full stop into geology, are convening to decide whether in 2017 we're going to enter a new geological era. That has never happened in terms of the human race.
What do you mean by geological?
Never happened. Within the rock that's underneath our feet, there is a record of everything that's happened. It's called a geological record.
Like fossils?
Fossils, definitely. So that's how, when we cut down into the rock sedimentation, you can see all of the different things that have happened within the environment. It's the only place that it's recorded. So when we change those eras, we're currently in the Holocene. Okay?
So they're saying like there's going to be another layer in like a couple of years?
You're spot on. So if anyone didn't hear that, basically the gentleman said, we're basically trying to work out now whether the damage we're wreaking is so widespread that we're leaving permanent damage. It's very difficult to see species depletion within the geological record. Although you may have some skeletal remains, it doesn't show you how many species we've lost. What it does show you, one of the things, are nuclear isotopes. Now, because they are going to last for tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years in terms of their afterlife, of course they didn't exist before we arrived. That's one of the ways in which they can literally say that's actually something that is a fundamental change to the ecosystem. So I'm going to explain how I bring all of that current science, I suppose, that debate into this piece of work. And then I've just got a couple of final slides. This was a commission from earlier in the year, actually, last year, for a university for its anniversary. And this, again, is where I'm trying to explain to you. You can actually ask some quite compelling political questions, as long as you handle it carefully. I certainly didn't say to the commissioners, I'd like to put a really hot topic straight on the middle of your campus, please, that is really difficult right now to deal with, when you've asked me to respond to the opening of a new geosciences building. But what they do know about my work is that I'm not afraid to ask those questions that are the difficult questions. So I worked with them for 6 months, did a lot of workshops, worked a lot around the environment, and then this was probably one of the pictures that I was most frightened about putting forward. Thought they were going to think I'd gone absolutely mad. In my brief, I said it had to look as incongruous, so as inconsistent as a piece of aircraft undercarriage on the campus. But I said, you're opening a new geosciences department, and right now I think we're taking the environment just about as seriously as we do Las Vegas. And this is an exact replica of the Las Vegas sign. It's taller, but it's about a third smaller. So I work with the sign manufacturers to change. The Las Vegas sign says welcome to fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, and my sign says welcome to the fabulous Anthropocene era. Because I'm saying to the geologists and all the students on the campus, think about your material use, think about why you're doing what you're doing, stop in your tracks for a moment, think about where you're placed in terms of your actions. So I'm provoking, I'm instigating. Right, last couple of slides.
Is Anthropocene the current geological?
No, we're in the Holocene, and by 2017 they will decide whether there's enough information. If you can imagine, they're having to collate thousands, hundreds of thousands of scientific reports. And it's a very big, when we get into whether or not we're going to admit this in some respects, it's a very densely, deeply loaded subject matter, because what does it take to say, yes, this is irrevocable damage? What does it take to say, right, it's irrevocable damage emotionally, we might feel that, but how are we saying that on a really stripped back scientific level? Where are we seeing it recorded? Yes, we're seeing it in species depletion. We're certainly seeing it in our weather at the moment, but that's not shown in the geological record. So 2017. Right, my penultimate slide, rhizomatic, multiple entry and exit points. What this means is, and again, have a look at the website, but I exhibit in gallery spaces, working railway platform stations, old warehouses. I work with primary school kids, I work with prisoners. This is the process-driven material-led part of what I'm talking about with people. And it's very easy when you leave to think, look at all those successful artists over here who are up there, because we do think of some of the greats, the bigs, the people you might know, all of that sort of thing. But there's lots of people like Merlades and Ukules who have been very resolutely continuing to do what they do and entering lots of different multiple entry and exit points with their work, and you will be no different.
The only thing I don't get is if you care that much about the environment, why did you buy that plastic lidded coffee mug then?
Because I'm going to take that away with me, and I'll probably... I'm going to take that away with me, and what I'll probably do with that next is actually plant that up so that I can use it for a seedling.
Sorry, I just thought you were being like really hypocritical.
No, don't you worry. I have to be uber careful of how I do what it is I do and why I'm doing it. My car that I drove here in runs on biodiesel that I pick up from 2 pubs.
You ever heard of an electric car? That might be a bit better.
So I basically process with my partner a fuel to go in our car that I don't even that basically comes from waste chip fat.
Why don't you just
and that's totally legal.
Why don't you just get an electric car?
Because I'd still be plugging into the grid, wouldn't I? Still be plugging into the grid. Let me just finish with these last two slides. Okay, somebody asked me back in 2011 what advice I'd give for recent graduates. I'm going to read it out. Work consistently at the coalface of your narrative, your approach, your point of view. Read widely, drinking the opportunities that life throws your way. Remember material, location, commission. Build bridges, start fires, nurture connections, stretch out to the people that inspire you because of their way of working, their approach to life, their vision. Be bold. There's lots of people who may actually say yes, but you haven't asked them yet. So, you know, if it's a shop in the high street, if it's the hotel over there, if it's that pub, they may actually say yes to you. If you talk to them about what it is you do, they might really be into it. Try not to allow the exhibition of your work to be confined to the rooms in your mind. Frequently, we get really stuck in this headspace. You know, it's not going to be any good. I won't like it. I'm too fearful about it. Make the work. Take it outside of up here. Put it in the public realm. Talk to people about it. Put it in the shopping centre. The more you do what you do, the more you will tune into why you're doing what you're doing, and the less stressed you'll become about the artefact possibly as well. Your work needs the oxygen of an audience. It's in their minds that the work becomes activated. I can tell you immediately, and today's been a really good example of it, when someone's got a question, they'll say it. Put it out there, talk about it, because the more you do that, the more hopefully astutely you'll be saying it, and specifically you'll be saying it. Last one. There's loads there, but you're going to get this as a slide. Yeah, let's look at the time rather than we talk through all of that, because you're going to get it as a slide. I want to make sure I've got time for you to actually ask more questions if you like. I'll run through it really quickly. You're in a community at the moment, and when you leave here, you may join an artist community, you may join a studio group. But it can actually be a really lonely road to tread, and your perseverance can actually, I wouldn't say falter, but you want to keep doing what you're doing, and you want to keep giving yourself the oxygen of other people that stimulate your thinking and your way of looking at the world. Those top 3, well it's top 4 really, but Access Web, I think they still do a student entry. I know that they do a graduate entry. It's an online curated portfolio of work. It's a way that curators in this country and commissioners come to you about your work. It's Access Web, that's why I'm here, isn't it? Wasn't it through Access that you...
It's a good alternative to, if you haven't got time to do your own, God, it's just gone from my head. Website, thank you, you said that. So, it's a good alternative to, not having, if you haven't got time to do a website, to put your work on there. It's like a real good community of like networking and getting your work out there. So I use it a lot too, in terms of looking for artists.
And that's the only reason, that's why we're here having this conversation, isn't it? Retitle is an international version of it. Or not that there aren't international elements to Access Web, but Retitle have a lot of international calls. It's just a different type of site. eFlux, don't get over... I double-checked with our technician friend about whether there was any timing on this slideshow, and he said no, but it keeps popping up. eFlux, don't get worried or feel befuddled if when you go to look at eFlux that it seems a bit like academia.edu. On eFlux, it's an international network of contemporary practice, but some of it's really quite dense intellectually as well. But that's fine. Just get yourself familiarised with it. And if you're not sure bits and pieces, ask the person next to you. Go to Heidi. Google the words. Just become familiar with it. AN. Well, I mean, I can't begin to say how important. If you practice in this country and you're putting things in the public realm, you're going to go and do a workshop. You're interacting with the people in any way. As I'm sat here now, I have public liability insurance, and the reason I have that is because it comes with AN. So AN is all of the things that Access is, and it's a lot of the things that Retitle are. But they're advocates. They show you. They've got an artist toolkit. Sometimes people come up to you and say, "We'd really like to have a show in the shopping centre," and then you go away and you think, "I don't even know what price to put on the work." The artist toolkit will help you to understand your studio costs, your material costs, the time you put into it, what most people generally are charging when they've 1 year's experience, 2 years' experience, 3 years' experience. Twitter, I talked a little bit about Twitter at the start. Really dynamic way in which to have conversations with people, to ask them for help. I connected with Five Dryers, which is a charity on the west coast of America. They worked with me with a piece of work about the plastic waste. There's no way I would have had the responses I have had about that, other than had I worked with them. Let's go back. Last time. Right. Yes, WordPress, Tumblrs, Arts Council jobs, artsjobs.org.uk. Even if you just look at it tonight when you get in, you can get a weekly newsletter of, I wouldn't say every opportunity, but a vast variety of opportunities that are available right now. Student prizes, shops that want filling, people that want £2 million commissions, they're on your weekly newsletter. That's it. I'm not going to go back to that slide again for a minute, but I'm going to give you a copy of it so that you've got that. So yeah, any questions?
Have you ever looked at working as in the health issues of plastic? Like gone down that route?
Yeah, there are lots of different ways in which to manifest how you're showing what you're showing, and pollution in its widest sense, which is what you're talking about, have a lot of indicators, yeah. But I tell you what I'm immediately feeling about it, when I say it, is that there's a lot of work that you can do, literally in terms of hospital commissions, where there's some space for that. But no, it's like I keep quite religiously to the waste itself in a lot of ways. Other than, I mean, obviously you saw with Smart Price, the problem with the plastic in the sea is that it's becoming a chemical sponge. So that's entering the food chain, and even as I say that to you, there are mind maps, graphs, infographics. There's some incredible work coming out at the moment. Last sort of 10, 15 years, some incredible map work that I've seen in installation settings. So, yeah, a lot of opportunity there with that.
You said about the waste. You said that the plastics last 300 to 400 years. Is there evidence that it actually will never break down, or are you saying it would take that long to break down?
Well, it all depends. I mean, I'll show you the
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. There's a massive sliding scale, and we're treating the plastics in a very different way to the way we used to. So we have starch-based plastics that are broken down far more quickly. If there's light shown to that plastic, if it's agitated the way it is in the sea, then it becomes micro beads. I mean, that is the problem. We don't have the evidence yet because of the way in which we've been producing it. I mean, that's the other problem, really. It's a little bit the same as a nuclear waste issue.
So different countries tend to deal with it in different ways, don't they? I mean, I've been in Germany and I've been in France, for example.
Yeah.
They are huge recycle.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to a recycle plant and you look at where the UK is, we're bottom 3 for recycling.
Yeah.
But you go to somewhere, Germany, that are near to the top, France near to the top.
Now, I'll tell you why Germany's near the top. There's a constitutional law in Germany where the manufacturer of that waste has to deal with it as waste.
Yes.
So the manufacturer of any packaging, they have to, by law, deal with the waste they create. And without getting too into the environmental
politics.
Yeah, without getting too deeply into it all, because this works absolutely at the intersection of kind of art and activism, really. Until we have what's called a triple bottom line in this country, meaning that profit, product and planet are all as important as each other, which is one of the things I sort of lobby for, really. Until we have that, it's not going to occur, because no one has to take responsibility for it, whereas in Germany, they have to. So they are, and then everybody feels that it's collective responsibility.
That's never going to happen, though.
Well, it might never happen, but I think we've just heard of two examples where it is happening.
Yeah, well, people
And
are always greedy somewhere, believe me. If we turn into a company that care about profit, Russia's going to turn into one that cares more about profit, then they'll turn environmental, then China will turn into one that cares more about profit, then they'll go environmental, then Korea.
Yeah, viva the,
Well, I don't want
the
to get into
revolution.
Korea,
Viva the revolution. Do you have any more?
Does your work ever depress you?
Does it depress me?
As in, no, I mean, as in doing something and nothing changing.
No, it doesn't depress me because I know on leaving this room it's impossible that it won't have changed at least one of you, because that's human interaction. I could meet somebody at a bus stop and have a conversation with them for 7 minutes and change the way I live my life for the next 20 years. Human interaction innately means that you leave something with the person you've had a conversation with. So, no, never.
Thank you.